Welcome into Mississippi State Live on the voice of college football. Andrew Miller, Christian Ballard here on a Thursday evening. A few minutes late, which has just kind of become par for the course because I do a terrible job of getting the stream ready to go, and we don't play anything until last second. But that's mostly on me because I didn't get the stream set up until like 10 minutes before. Great job of planning on my part. But yeah, it is call-in show time. So for anybody tuning in, you'll have the opportunity to come and be a part of the stream and give your thoughts on the Bulldogs. We have a link in the description of the video, also a link pinned to the top of the chat. As you are tuning in, if you could leave us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already, turn that notification bell on so you do know when we do go live. And if you could share the stream, tell all your friends, family, even the people you hate, tell them about us. We would certainly appreciate getting the subscribers up, getting the views up. That is the goal here. But yeah, call-in show. So we're going to be able to talk a little bit about whatever you guys want to talk about, ultimately, with it being a call-in show, if you come and be a part of the stream. We'll also get into, as the title says, are the stars aligning for a much better Bulldog defense? This was just a thought I had today, kind of prancing around work and not doing my job and just thinking about other things. Are the pieces starting to be in place to where if a few things click right for State defensively, they might take a big step forward next year? That's a topic of discussion I want to get into today. I do have a little bit more transfer portal news, which I think we can basically just assume that moving forward, every single time we do a show, there's going to be some sort of new transfer news. So we'll run through the new guys who have entered the portal to this point. And, hey, we may do a little bit of college football playoff talk just if we're looking for something else to talk about here on the stream. Quick programming note, we will do one show next week, obviously with it being Christmas. We're not going to do a Thursday show because that is Christmas. And we're not going to do anything Christmas Eve either. So what we're going to do is either Monday or Tuesday. It'll either be the normal time for the show or we'll go on Tuesday. I don't fully know just yet because I got to figure out what I'm doing with the SEC channel for when we're going to find the best day to go for that date. But there will be a show early next week. We'll start taking a look at Wake Forest, getting an idea of what to expect out of Demon Deacons. That's all the programming intro type stuff. Christian, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm ready for the holidays, excited for bowl season. Obviously, we got playoff games to kind of get into tonight if you want. Obviously, some SEC teams out there, one of which includes my Crimson Tide, who face Oklahoma on the road. So, yippee, get to lose to Brent Venables the third time, second time in Norman. I don't know. But anyway, it is great to have bowl season. We're off to a great start, had a couple good games already, and yeah, just very excited, and I want to go ahead and wish everyone a very Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Always a wonderful time of year, both because of the holiday and also because of bowl games, like you were mentioning. We do have the bowl games on TV, and those are fun to watch. But just if nothing else, to have something on in the background while you're doing whatever. I know there's going to be a game kicking off, I guess, about 49 minutes from now, another bowl game. So we'll hopefully we get done with this in time to sit around and watch that. We will start off a little bit of portal news for Mississippi State. A couple more players did hit the portal since we last did a show. I don't believe we talked about La'Kavian Jackson at safety. That was a guy it was true freshman season this year. Did not play, took a red shirt. A guy that was, I believe, a high 3-star coming out who was at one time, I think, committed to Florida State or was mulling over a Florida State offer with his battle, the Florida State battle to get him, if I remember correctly, for his recruitment. I think he was committed to State early in the process, may have decommitted or came close to decommitting, or maybe I'm just completely misremembering this. I think I was told there's a chance he decommits is what it was. And I think he ultimately never did. And ends up sticking with the Bulldogs. Looked like it was going to be a nice pickup, a guy who down the road could develop something for State at safety. But ultimately, he hits the portal after 1 year. So, don't know the situation there, what led to that decision, but he is moving on. That is another loss in the safety room, though, which kind of gets into the theme of a position they're going to have to hit in the portal hard. State now, it is officially 2 safeties transferring out, but – well, 3. I was looking at the Gene's page, updated list, and I forget that on there, Stonk is still listed as a receiver. So 3 safeties that have transferred out. You have 3 that are moving on via graduation. Potentially, as we'll talk about later with the defense, there's a chance Jerron Manning could find his way back, but at the very least, you're losing. Why am I blanking on names? Brylan Lanier, Hunter Washington, probably potentially losing Jerron Manning. We don't fully know just yet, but Tony Mitchell transferring out, Stonka Burnside transferring out, and LaCavian Jackson transferring out. That's a group Mississippi State is going to have to reload in the portal. And I know, obviously, you signed some safety prospects in this class, most notably Bretland Womack out of the high school class that you think can step in and contribute, but that's definitely going to be a position Mississippi State has to look at in the portal to add some more pieces there. A couple of tight ends hit the roster in Emeka Ilo and Cam Ball. Emeka Ilo, a 6'9", 270-pound JUCO product that when Mississippi State signed him last year, everybody knew, look, he's not going to play this season. Going to definitely be a developmental route. He was a defensive lineman who made the move to tight end and sort of having to develop a little bit. Was going to take him some time. But ultimately, Mississippi State and Emeka are going to go their separate ways after 1 year in the program. Look, that was intriguing from the athleticism standpoint. If you hit on a guy who's 6'9", 270, he can refine his blocking ability, route catching, pass catching, all that sort of stuff. Route running, pass catching. I think I combine those into one word. If he can refine all those things, you're talking about a really impressive athlete at the position, but it just didn't work out. He'll be moving on. And then Cam Ball, kind of similar. It's interesting when Cam Ball came to Mississippi State in 2024 alongside his brother Justin. Cam, the transfer out of Buffalo, was a 4-star transfer at tight end. I think 6'7". Hate that. 6'7", 250. Okay, I'm going
Don't worry.
aside here. And I think I tweeted this out. So at my job, there's like a big lot in front of it, and every day there is a school bus that comes by because they use the parking lot to turn around to go the other way. And today it came by early because I think classes were it was like a 60% day for schools or whatever because of Christmas break. So they let the kids out early. So the bus came by at like 11:45. And I had never heard this before. I guess because it was Christmas break, the teacher was having some fun, making it the bus driver was having fun with the kids and making it an enjoyable experience or whatever. She had some sort of an intercom system hooked up on her bus, and she was talking to the kids. And it was loud enough that I could hear, I'm pretty sure I heard her tell some kid he needed to sit down, something along those lines. And I didn't really hear everything, but as she is turning around to pull back out into the road and go off in the other direction, I hear her say 6'7", followed by all the children screaming in glee. And this epidemic has to stop. Our country has been plagued. 6'7" is a terror on society. It is the worst meme that has ever been created. And I
8, 9, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What do you want from us? They're two numbers. Who cares? Golly.
I have seen
you put them together. If you put them together, you get a 67, which is a D on a quiz. That's not passing.
I did see someone say if a kid says 6'7" to you, say 8, 9 back at them because it makes them mad and you ruin the joke for them. That's got to be what we do. We have to fight back and end this epidemic that is, again, plaguing society, that this is something that became a meme. Did you see, I'm supposed to be talking about the transfer portal here.
Yeah.
Did you see the video? The Costco guys, right?
I think so, yeah.
It's the dad and his son who did the video, the TikTok or whatever, about all the stuff they do at Costco. And now they've had all the other videos they do where they get the rest of the family involved. There's one now where the kid is lined up like a quarterback, where his dad is the center, and his mom is over she's in the stands like a cheerleader. And the kid is shouting out like he's audibling, and he says 6'7", 6'7", and is hook a chicken bake, to a chicken bake or whatever, back to 6'7", and that
I think I have seen that. Yeah.
I can't say on this stream what goes through my mind when I see that video. because I'm gonna lose it. I'm going to lose my mind, and I'm not a fan of the Costco guys and the Costco
Yeah.
family, I suppose. Um, also, Costco pizza is overrated. Uh, Sam's Pizza is better. Just thought I should put that out there. Cookie's good, but Costco pizza overrated. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Not really. I've never tried Costco pizza. I don't even think I've had stuff from Sam's, but I don't think I've even tried their pizza.
You're in
But
Publix country, so I
I
imagine
am in Publix country.
I've had a pub sub once. Um,
Yep.
it was all right. I don't think I got one that I think they've got different flavors now or something. Like I'd like to because like I got a tender sub, but they didn't
Hmm.
have the sauces that I would have wanted to put on there. Uh, so I don't know if there's anything different than that now. What's worse, 6-7 or Hawk Tua? They're both
6-7.
bad. The only thing
Oh,
I will
Victor,
say,
what's up,
I
buddy?
cannot believe I'm going to defend Hawk Tua here, which didn't. That girl is like gone into hiding because she did a meme coin and like scammed a bunch of people. So like
Yeah.
she's disappeared off the face of the earth. The only thing with that is it was a drunk girl saying something stupid in a video and it blew up. Like, and there's I guess context behind it. Whereas 6-7, like I kind of know the backstory of it, but it's at this point it's just like kids just say it's just something kids want to say, and like
And it
it's
gets on everyone's nerves.
so Hawk 2 was bad. It got bad. It really did. But there's at least times where like I think you could make a Hawk 2 a joke and it was funny. I've
Hmm.
6-7 is literally just the only it's never funny. It's literally just oh no, look, 6 and 7 came up in somewhere in the world, and we now have to make a joke out of it.
Every time, by the way. Every damn time we hear it.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
if you say, even if you just say, like, oh, my kid is 6 years old. Oh, is he 6 or 7? And I'm just like, y'all need to shut up. Like,
I accidentally said a 6-7 today, but there was
yeah.
no reaction because I was saying it to like someone who wouldn't even think that. So, and I just as soon as I said it, I realized what I said, but I didn't react. I didn't because I was doing a 6 or 7 type thing, and it was okay.
Yeah. What's up, guys? We got a couple of my folks showing up tonight. Lawn Tractor Life and VicTube in the comments from Ballard Sports Media's side of things. So love and appreciate you guys showing up.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like a crazy aside. But fine. Back to talking about Mississippi State in the portal.
Yeah.
Cameron Ball, the other Ball brother, hit in the portal. Look, a guy who again had, if you search 6-7 on your Google, your screen shakes. I will not be trying that. I feel like that
I don't
gives
even.
virus.
Yeah, probably.
No, I mean I get it. Google's had some cool things over the years where you search a certain thing. Like there's also like you used to be able to like search like a game and like Google. I think like Pac-Man you could play within the Google search,
Mhm.
stuff like that. That stuff was pretty neat. Yeah, Justin Ball had great size, and again, 4-star transfer. Mississippi State signed him, so there's this thought of hey, that guy could develop into a big time tight end for State, and just didn't see the field much this year. I don't know if he even ended up. Did he have a catch at this point? Let me pull up the numbers for State. We're 2 catches for 12 yards this season. Last season, made tackles on special teams. At Buffalo, and look, even with him, it was always projection because I mean, as a freshman at Buffalo, it was 8 catches for 82 yards. That was always kind of the interesting thing for me is like he comes in as a 4-star player. And it was all very much projection with him. But I know with his size, there was a thought that he could turn into something. It just didn't happen. But now State's tight end room, like a lot of overturn there. Because again, Ilo is transferring out. Cam Ball is transferring out. Max Reese transferring out. You are losing Seydou Traore. And like you got, so that's 4 players, including your starting tight end, and then a couple guys who've got reps. You have Sam West coming back, who look showed a couple flashes, had a nice touchdown catch, 4 catches, 35 yards in the season. Showed a few things as a little bit of a blocker. I know they got like 3 tight ends coming into this class, most notably Zayon Cotton, who is sort of that receiving threat hybrid type player that plays the same role that you had with Seydou Traore. But are you expecting him to be able to contribute as a true freshman? It would be the guy's a true freshman. We don't yet know. So I think you're going to see them go after at least one tight into the portal. I'm very interested to see the approach they take on that. Like, do they think Sam West is a guy who can come in and like develop into a true weapon, or does he get to a point of being a dominant enough blocker that, like, how is that going to influence what you bring in? How confident are you in Zayon Cotton stepping in and being a big contributor right away? I talked about in the last show sort of the tight end philosophy thing, that when you have a dual threat quarterback, despite what a lot of people would think of, okay, well, you want a tight end who's a great blocker then to really be a powerful run game. It's actually almost of more benefit to have a tight end who's a receiving threat, because having the running quarterback already makes it less vital that you have the great blocking up front facing light boxes, right? That's the whole thing. And in this offense, you face a lot of light boxes. Can you run the football effectively in that way? So if you want to really maximize your productivity, having a tight end that's a great pass catcher could be a great compliment. So I'm going to be really interested to see what they do in the portal at the tight end position. The biggest portal addition that we had today, Luke Kromenhoek at quarterback, officially entering the transfer portal. Will stay on with Mississippi State through the bowl game. Most of these transfers, if not all of them, are just not going to be a part of the program for the bowl. But Kromenhoek specifically will be with Mississippi State in Charlotte because they need him to. You don't have anybody after Kamario Taylor because Blake Shapen's not going to be there for the bowl game. He's finished his time with the program. So if something were to happen with Kamario, you got to be able to put somebody in at quarterback. That's why Kromenhoek's going to stay on through the bowl, but then he's going to transfer out. Look, I think when State signed Kromenhoek, we all sort of knew in the back of our mind, odds are this guy's not going to be the player next year. But at the same time, former 5-star recruit had shown some solid play as a true freshman at Florida State, a guy that you feasibly, like, we didn't know what Kamario was going to be for sure. Like, you could have said there's a chance that, hey, next year Luke Kromenhoek steps in as the quarterback at Mississippi State. Or let's say Kamario had come in this season and was not quite ready. Like, even if he was going to be the guy for 26, if he wasn't quite ready to get on the field, if Blake Shapen goes down, you feasibly could have turned it over to Kromenhoek. You had to have somebody step in. You had to have a guy come in to give you valuable reps and be that safety blanket on the roster, because you got to have 3 scholarship quarterbacks, just the reality of it. And look, hey, you also saw the upside, right? You were signing a guy who's very talented, and you feasibly could have put together a world where that guy competes to be a starting quarterback at Mississippi State. But obviously, once Kamario Taylor emerged the way he did, the writing's on, K1 is Mississippi State's quarterback next year and for the foreseeable future. Luke Kromenhoek is a good enough player that he can go play somewhere else. I know Florida State fans are going to dunk all over him because they got mad about the amount of money that he wanted coming out, but the guy will find a good landing spot. That does mean, though, State's going to have to go after a portal quarterback now. So, Christian, I mean, what are your thoughts on what do we think? I mean, we kind of know if Kamario Taylor's the starter, it limits the type of player you're able to attract in the portal. But they got to find a quarterback somewhere for a depth piece.
They do. Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, look, this is not a deep it's not a bad quarterback room, but it's definitely not as deep as you would want it to be.
Well, yeah, now you have 2 players because it's Kamario and then the freshman Brody McCorder stepping in. So
True. As far as who they go get, I mean, Pribula from Missouri entered the portal today. Jake Merklinger from Tennessee. There's Garrett Rangel from Virginia Tech. Anyway, not to get off on a big tangent of who all's in the portal. Aaron Philo might be a interesting name for Georgia Tech, but no, they got to get a quarterback. Mississippi State does, especially with Kromenhoek gone, and Shapen. Remind me again. He's not returning next year, is he? It'll
No, he's
be
not.
basically he's gone. It's Camario's team. However, behind him is kind of a mystery right now, and you're kind of having to roll the dice potentially on a transfer. And when you look at the recruiting class they just signed too, I mean, they brought in quite a bit. You got Brody McWhorter, but again, a 3-star freshman, that's not something you always want to put your hope in right away. So I think they're going to have to hit the portal. I don't know who it's going to be as far as who they're going to get or who the best opportunity would be, but it's definitely got to be something that Jeff Lebby and company are looking into.
You have to find someone that could.
Well, they got to fit the system first off. They got to fit the system,
Sure,
and
and look,
then
there's
yeah,
multiple guys in the portal right now that are familiar with this offense. Between Caden Hauser coming out of ECU, Colton Joseph coming out of Old Dominion, you mentioned Merklinger from Tennessee. The
yeah,
problem is all of those guys I would expect are going to go to try to find a place where they can start. In the case of Hauser and Joseph, like those are guys who were good enough starters at the G5 level that they're going to go be a starter for a power conference team this year. That's the idea. Merklinger, I think, definitely is looking at Tennessee and kind of feels like, okay, they've got other guys in that. I don't know if Aguilar can come back another season for them or not. I think he's going to apply for another year is how that works. Because every player who's running out of eligibility is applying for another year. That's just how college
right.
football works these days. But I also think they've got another quarterback in that room who's another young guy that they feel better about. So I imagine that's a guy who's looking to go and find a place where he's a little bit more um, established, or where he feels more confident in being able to compete for the job. It's a tough situation for State because you're having to sell someone to come in and be a backup. Like, who's a guy that is comfortable coming to be a backup? And I think, can you find someone that at this point in their career is just interested in sort of learning to be a coach type thing? I
Yeah,
know that because that happens sometimes. There are guys who reach the final year of their career and recognize, like, okay, look, I've played. It's not necessarily going to work out for me, but let's see if I can find an opportunity in coaching, and like go learn from Jeff Lebby for a year while you're on the roster. And like, yeah, you're the backup. You're going to get some reps. You're going to get some playing time, but ultimately, you're getting a starting coach. I'm like, can you tell a guy like, hey, come on here and like you'll have a spot as a GA next season. Like,
hmm
come play one last year and then you'll be a GA on our staff next season. I mean, can you find a more high profile guy who's willing to come along? I mean, Jackson Arnold at this point in his career, is he interested in just reuniting for Jeff Lebby, knowing he's not going to start? That's the tough thing there. And you can't.
I think when you look though in the portal, I think it's gonna. My opinion is if you're gonna get a guy that's not gonna start right away, that you want to learn the system and be a reliable backup. Like you look at some of these guys, like Dylan Rayola. You can look at Jaden Davis, who's from Michigan. It's guys like that that are probably not going to be where you want. I mean, if you want to try to get them, cool, but they're not going somewhere to be backups. None of these guys are. But I'm seeing like there's a guy from UTEP, Skylar Locklear. Dexter Williams is from Kennesaw State. Aaron Philo is from Georgia Tech, but he saw some playing time. I'm sure he wants to be a starter somewhere. Couldn't beat out Haynes King, but anyway, didn't mean to cut you off there. I just had to get that out. Like, obviously, you're looking for a backup role for somebody. You're not gonna roll the dice on someone coming from another Power Four school, are you? Or I guess it depends on. I mean, are they third or fourth string?
You are just looking for someone. Look, if there is a promising young quarterback who is willing to come to Mississippi State, even knowing Jeff Lebby, sorry, not Jeff, knowing that Kamario Taylor is the guy, and for the
Yeah.
right price, like you are not going to pay big on this. But if there's a promising young QB who's very talented, that's like, hey, no, I'm like, I understand he's the starter, but like, I still am intrigued and would like to step in, then sure.
Mhm.
Realistically, though, you're probably talking about a guy who at this point in his career understands, all right, it's just not going to happen. Like, just a name. And, like, this guy, you would not be signing this guy to come in and start. A.J. Swan hit the portal. So that's a guy who's been around college football for see, I'm interested. How is he going to –
Is he the guy that – wasn't he at Vandy at one year?
He
Swan.
does
I
have
know
one
that.
more year of eligibility. Yeah, no, so he started his career at Vanderbilt. And actually, it's interesting. His first year at Vandy, like 10 touchdowns, 2 picks in 9 games, was not, great. Was not a downfield passer. Was not a high completion percentage, but still 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. Then his second season, he was like the guy early on, and it just didn't work out for him all that great. He went to LSU. I believe he took a red shirt there. Goes to App State and was the starting quarterback early in the season. Got off to a hot start, played well early in the year, but then as the season went along, I think he got benched. Didn't have the most incredible year. But that's a guy who is a fifth-year player, has started games within the SEC. Like, he could come to Mississippi State. Like, I imagine A.J. Swan, and maybe he doesn't, because some of these guys are always convinced there's a place I can go and play. But maybe A.J. Swan's the type of guy that kind of recognizes, all right, I've had my moments in the sun as much as I can. I need to go find a place where I can just have a home on a roster. And could that be a guy that you go to? Braden Fallon Nicolosi transferring, man. I bet he's going to go find a place he could start. I'm just like running down just names, anybody I might recognize that has been in football for a bit and might understand. I need to go find another place.
Pribula entered today from Mizzou.
Pribula is going to go find a place.
Remember, he was at I would think so. Wasn't he at Penn State? I think is where he started out, and then he transferred, and
his OC also just got the head coaching job at Washington State.
That might be interesting for them next year. See how he does. But
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to go there, but
right,
that might be what he's looking at. So I don't know. Like, State's going to have to find someone like an A.J. Swan, assuming A.J. Swan. I'm not saying it's going to be A.J. Swan. That's the only name I saw where that's a guy who I know. All right, he's played college football long enough that at this point he probably has to recognize, like I've been at multiple schools. I just need to find a place to go finish my career and maybe get a start in coaching somewhere along those lines, because that's the type of guy you're getting. And I think you would prefer a veteran QB. Like, I think you'd prefer a guy who's got some starts under his belt, because if it is another young guy, well, what happens if Camario goes down? You're running another young guy out there. And I think you want a veteran who would make a lot of sense, just in the sense you want a veteran who's done it before, because the only way this guy's hitting on the field is if Camario's hurt. Well, if Camario's hurt, you need to turn the reins over to someone that has at least played enough college football that you would hope they don't make a ton of mistakes. Now, I say that, and A.J. Swan is a guy who's very turnover prone for his career, but that's just a name I'm throwing out there. He fits the mold of the type of guy you're looking for, is the point that I'm getting to. So we'll see how that works out. Again, reminder for those of you tuning in, the call-in show. So you have the opportunity, if you would like to call in, give us your thoughts on the Bulldogs. I have a link pinned to the top of the live chat, also a link in the description of the video. Just click the link, keep the camera turned off, and we'll bring you in and we can talk about whatever. But yeah, so I mean, that stayed in the portal. That's, again, you've had plenty of entries out. Not many to this point, guys that you were really hoping to keep. I think just running down the list, Stonka Burnside, I think you would have preferred to keep, because you wanted to see that talent, what he could develop into. Tony Mitchell, you would have liked to have had on the roster, have a talented piece in the secondary who could be a good option for you. Jimothy Lewis, I think you would have liked to have kept, just because of the possibility of developing into the type of big-time tight end that you hope he could be. There's no one else on there that you would really raise an eyebrow out. Now, I understand there's guys on the roster that are currently in conversations, are the exploring options and considering, are we going to go and try to find another opportunity elsewhere? Should we get more money elsewhere? Whatever it may be. And hopefully those things all get resolved and none of those guys enter. But so far, the portal, it's nothing that you're not really able to handle if you're Mississippi State. we'll talk about this here, and I'll want to go through this. So if anybody has a call, like just we'll put a pause on that. But or the best way to say it is, I'm going to get into this topic, and I want to hit this whole topic through, and then we'll open back up for calls once again if anybody wants to come and join in. But the title of the video, the stars aligning for a much better Bulldog defense. And I brought this up because it's just something I was thinking about at work today. So we had some news with State's defensive roster. We learned that Will Whitson officially is not the right word. Will Whitson announced his intentions to return to Mississippi State. Whitson, obviously for MSU, the transfer out of Coastal Carolina was battled some injuries there in Conway, but ultimately when he was available, was very productive. Transfers to Mississippi State last year and looked incredibly productive. He played 1.5 games. In the 1.5 games, 8 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Was really able to create a lot of disruption in that Mississippi State defensive front. But he gets hurt on like the last play of the first half against Arizona State and is done for the year. Now, as soon as that happened, because he's a fifth-year player, and as soon as that happened, a lot of people kind of assumed like, hey, he's only played 1.5 games. Like that should be a guy who should be able to get a waiver to return. And they have been in the process of trying to get that waiver for a 6th season. And Mississippi State is very confident that it is going to pass. It is not official yet. He is not officially able to return, but he has announced that assuming that does get passed, and they think it will be, Will Whitson will be back, which is big for Mississippi State to have a talent like him in their defensive line. And look, to be fair, I don't want to put too much pressure on him because we saw 1.5 games. There's no guarantee he would have been as dominant over the entire course of the season as what we saw in 1.5 games against Southern Miss and Arizona State. What does it look like in SEC play? But what we saw was a whole lot better than what we saw from anybody else on the defensive line all year. What we saw looked like a guy that has the potential of being a game wrecker, game changer type piece on that defensive line. So getting him back is a big deal. Then you talk about a guy like Jerron Manning at safety, who is just finished his 4th year. His career should be done, as I was talking about earlier with the safeties. But Manning mentioned this week in press conferences that they are exploring a 5th year of eligibility for him. So Jerron Manning was a former JUCO player. And this, I think, is essentially going to start being called the Diego Pavia rule, which that's a guy who certainly had a lot of people change their minds on him in the coming days. And, oh, great, we have spam in the chat.
Sweet.
So just handle that real quick. There we go. That's a step for this channel, by the way. I did just mess up my clip a little bit. That's fine. If we're getting spam in the chats, like that's a good sign, right? Like this
yeah, I used to when Ballard Sports Media first got going in 2020. Man, woo, we were growing. We got spam all the time.
It's going to get called the Diego Pavia rule moving forward, but the idea from a Diego Pavia's argument was that if you play JUCO football, that should not count against your eligibility. You should still get at least 4 years at the FBS level, or I guess NCAA level. So like that's how Mississippi State was able to get Devon Booth back for another season. Now, last year, this was all kind of it was like a temporary ruling from the NCAA and the courts, whoever. They allowed it for 1 year. It is not officially allowed this season. It's something they're taking it to court, and the court's going to have to make a ruling. But if that ruling happens, then Jerron Manning, in favor of, hey, if you were JUCO, you get another year of eligibility. If that ruling happens, then Mississippi State gets the opportunity to bring Jerron Manning back. And Trey, I see you in there. I need to get through this, so you're going to have to hold on for just a sec, but we will bring you on. So just letting you know. You get the opportunity to bring that guy back. Well, okay, you know what? Hey, I can do the clip after because we already messed up my clip. Little inside baseball here. I need to make good clips to put out on the channel. So I can break down all this stuff a little bit more here in a sec. And I don't have to explain as much. We'll go ahead and bring Trey in. Trey, how's it going?
What's up?
Sorry, I keep messing the clip up.
No, that's fine. We had I'd already screwed it up by talking about this idiot who was in our chat spamming it. So cool.
I thought about starting with the 6-7 joke, but I think we'll just let that slide.
Thank you.
Couple things real quick. Croman Hawk, did I hear you say he said today that he was getting in the portal?
Yeah, so Croman Hawk is entering the portal. He is going to stay with the team through the bowl game. So whereas like pretty much everybody else hitting the portal's not going to be going to Charlotte, Croman Hawk is going to be on because they have to have him there just in case something happens with Camario because they don't have anybody else.
Good for him for staying on, being willing to do that. I'm sure there's probably some compensation there, but
I bet.
I heard that discussion. I actually really like what Lane did. Go out and get someone at the FCS or D2 level, I guess Chambliss was from Fair State, who's been really productive for 2 years, who can come in and nobody thought Trinidad was going to be what he was, but could at least come in and be serviceable. And I'm sure they got him for cheap. I mean, they probably threw $50,000 at him or something. But my thought is, if something happens to Camario and it goes, he goes down, let's be honest. I mean, the season's in a bad way, right? And so instead of spending $250,000 on somebody like Croman Hawk, that could go to another offensive lineman or somewhere else to beef up your team. It's kind of the money ball aspect, I guess, of what I'm thinking about. Where are you going to spend your money? I really love the idea of getting someone that has a lot of proven production, even at a lower level, as opposed to going to get a guy who's going to come in and that you're going to spend a lot of money on, that is going to be a backup. That's just my thought.
If you can make it happen, for sure. Now, I bet Trinidad got more money than that. I bet he got paid a pretty significant amount because I think Ole Miss, one, I think they've had it. Two, last year was for sure like there's this whole thing is there going to be any sort of a salary cap implemented? I don't think there ever will be. I think there will always like NIL. I doubt the clearinghouse stuff ever gets passed because I think the courts are going to rule against that. But there were a lot of teams, like notably Texas Tech, who went out and basically spent like 40, 50 million on their roster, whatever they did, who went above and beyond to make sure they got all of this in before any sort of potential salary cap from the rev share stuff got set in place. So I'd imagine Ole Miss was willing to pay Trinidad quite a bit because I think Trinidad did have another option elsewhere. I don't remember what school it was, but I think he had a potential starting option, and he went to the place that was willing to pay him more. So, look, if you're willing to pony up and you got someone that would be like that who's willing to come on, okay. I just think realistically it's going to be tough to get a player like that, which is where I would more look the route of, all right, veteran player who I think is willing to accept at this point in his career, probably not going to find another starting option, but someone who can be a serviceable backup, a veteran in the room, that's probably your most likely chance.
Yeah. All right, I'll throw one more thing at you, and then I'll hop off. Just kind of keeping in the Moneyball vein. Instead of start here, Levy's offense is wide receiver friendly. It seems like every year he's going to have at least one, sometimes two receivers that are going to put up significant numbers, right? It doesn't have to be an NFL guy. Ricky Johnson, help me out. The guys that are still on the roster, some of the young guys, San Frisco, some of those guys. I wonder, assuming you keep Ant, we'll see, but I wonder instead of spending money there, big money there on receivers, if you spend it, go back to your lines of scrimmage, because it seems like to me, if you look at the teams that are really successful in the portal era, and I guess football in general, you got to get the line of scrimmage right. I think that's obvious for us, especially in the league we play in. And on a team that's on a budget, I mean, we have money, but we don't have ridiculous money. It seems like to me, I would prioritize spending the money on the lines of scrimmage, both of them, and be good there. Even if that means I don't spend as much at the skill spots. Just my thought.
So I go back and forth on this because you're right that this offense does help receivers produce, and guys who have otherwise not done much in their careers step in and put up big numbers. I do think there is a threshold, though, where I don't think you can roll an average group of receivers out there and be successful in this system. Like, I think back to some of the receiving corps State had from 2017 through 2020, really, before Leach really got his group put in there. I don't think that'd be good enough within this offense. Because I do think we have seen with this system before, when teams have not had the receiver talent, it has at times been a bit of a struggle. Like, you need to have vertical threat receivers is the big thing. Do you have guys that you can consistently trust to go win one-on-one downfield? That is what makes this system go. Now, you don't have to have elite talents. You don't necessarily have to have big size. You don't necessarily have to have crazy length. They want track stars, which is kind of what you got this year by going out and getting Brennan Thompson and Anthony Evans. If you can go out and find guys who you know have the speed and prioritize that over everybody else or over everything else, then I think this idea can work a little bit more. But I do think you probably need to have at least one true big-time receiver in this system every single year. I'm going to give kind of the controversial take a little bit. It's an interesting spot State's in. And I do think for Mississippi State, it's a very different situation because I do think the overall recruiting, you need to have this position more settled. I would prioritize receiver over quarterback in this offense.
I would too.
I would rather have the receivers than the quarterback because I think if you have and I know people will look at how Chapin played last year and lose their minds over that, but I also think that's where, to your point, the lines of scrimmage being so poor played a role in that. This is a system where if you have a quarterback who can go make the layups and you trust to not make dumb mistakes, get rid of the football and make the layups that we scheme open, you're set. And we kind of saw that with Tennessee. Nico had all the talent in the world, but Nico was going to demand an amount of money that just wasn't realistic for that program when there were other things that they could get better about. So they go out and get a veteran guy, Joey Aguilar, that they trust to just make smart decisions with the football and just deliver the ball on time and accurately. And it also helped that they had some receivers step up and Staley and Matthews to go alongside Brazel. And Brazel took a big step forward. They had those guys step up. They got a quarterback in who could just sort of go out and just execute well, and the offense exploded once again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I said it's wide receiver friendly. It's certainly quarterback friendly too, right? I mean, I think that's apparent. And so, again, whether you're docking some pay from quarterback, receiver, whatever, I think the primary thing, and it's obvious to me, that we have to get the lines of scrimmage right. And that's it starts there on both sides, or we're, spitting in the wind.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And the reason I bring up it's controversial is because right now Mississippi State has the young hotshot quarterback.
That's true.
That you have to pay. And this is where it goes against what I was just saying. Mississippi State cannot not pay Kamario Taylor. Unless next year, for whatever reason, I am not putting this out into existence. If for some reason next year Kamario Taylor had a Nico situation, I'm not talking about the dad. I'm talking about from a play on the field standpoint where Nico showed all the flashes as a freshman, and then as it got into the season as a sophomore, it just didn't happen. Maybe then you reevaluate. I feel like Kamario is a guy, regardless, you're going to have to pay him. But I also think compared to Tennessee, Mississippi State does not have the roster talent top to bottom that Tennessee does.
No.
Which makes it far more important that you have a dude at quarterback who can elevate you. And Kamario is the type of guy that you think can do that. So I do think that changes the formula up a little bit. But I also don't think it's a situation where Mississippi State has to go out and sign an elite quarterback prospect every couple years. I would much rather recruit receivers and, to your point, lines of scrimmage. Get those pieces in place down the line. And you're right. Look, the lines of scrimmage things have to have that fixed. They got to get development down, though, some way. You cannot portal offensive line. And it's so tough because in this era, guys don't want to stay around in the program if they're not playing. But, your best bet for building offensive line, it's not even necessarily about loading up on talent as it is getting guys in the program who you get reps for over 3 or 4 years and then you have a veteran-laden group. Like,
well, you also got to have somebody who can develop them. The last time I called in, we had this conversation, and I mean, I'm willing to give him another year, but we'll see. Load Holt, I mean, I can't name you one offensive lineman that got better in the 10 months that he was here. I don't see it. Cannon Boone, I think, we don't know because he didn't play much before this year. Jacoby Jackson didn't get better. Luke Work regressed. Timothy Lewis regressed. I didn't see anybody develop on that offensive line. And I don't mean to be an all SEC caliber guy. I just mean to take a little step forward. And I haven't seen it. And so, my thoughts on that. I'm willing to give him one more year and see what happens. But if we're in the same situation next year, I know it's Levy's guy, but you gotta cut bait because, to your point, you got to be able to develop that spot. And that's one thing that traditionally we've done here. Whether it be whoever. I mean, Hevesy was there forever, but the guy that came with Jomo that went to Missouri, I mean, I thought he did an okay job too as an OL coach. But Mason Miller, I really liked as an OL guy for that system. But that's why I had reservations about not going to get a veteran offensive line coach who can develop guys. And maybe Levy just doesn't have those contacts. I don't know. But I agree with everything you guys are saying about, the trenches and getting that done. I'm going to hop off and let y'all finish. Enjoy the show.
Thanks, man. It's a fair point with Load Holt for sure. Because, yeah, I mean, as we moved right there. No, the development aspect of it is fair. We haven't necessarily seen that to his point in his career just yet. I think some of the regression was more guys not having the continuity together this year contributed to a lot of that, but it's totally fair. I mean, they're going to have to get better in the trenches. I mean, Christian, you saw that all throughout the season. Just if they're not set in those spots, they're just not going to improve the way they need to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different positions that you could tackle this offseason for Mississippi State. I mean, one big key one I think that y'all were talking about a little bit was wide receiver, but you bring up a good point about, battling in the trenches, really on both sides of the ball with O-line and defensive line. And I don't know, man. I'm not usually 9 times out of 10. I'm looking for speed on defense nowadays. I want to see guys off the edge that are just fast. I just want to see guys that are big bodies at this point from Mississippi State that get up and attack. I'm not saying they got to be like super, like, as fast as the Flash or anything like that, but it's like I want to see guys that aren't afraid to just go play some football and give it 110% every single week. And, for Mississippi State, it's like, I don't know, man. You look at what they have, at least from this season. I mean, you had a couple different guys out there really for this defensive front, and it's, I don't know, like your lead tackler was your safety. You had some key guys out there. You had Jere Bledsoe. You had Bingley Jones. I mean, you could go down the list. You had really good guys, but there wasn't really a true defensive lineman that really stood out. You had a couple guys in the secondary. You had a guy or two at linebacker that stood up and made plays when they needed to. But to his point and everything, I definitely, we could get back to talking about quarterbacks and stuff in a minute, but yeah, that defensive front, man, I want to see some effort put into just putting an emphasis on pass rush next year.
That's definitely going to be a part of it. Well, let's get into talking about the defense. This is how we'll close out the show tonight. And this was the thing we were going to get into earlier, and we'll hit it now. The idea of the stars aligning, and this is just a thought that I had thinking through the roster to some of the guys. So I know I already hit a few of these things, but we'll get into it again. So we got the news, Will Whitson announcing his intentions to return to Mississippi State. Now, officially, they still have got to get his waiver approved for a 6-year of eligibility. But Mississippi State is incredibly confident that'll happen. It should happen, considering that he played in 1.5 games this year and only played 4 games a season ago at Coastal Carolina. You should get him back. And what he showed in that short time, I mean, 1.5 games. It's not even 2 games. It's 1.5. 8 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, which no one else in the defensive front came close to matching that type of production on a per-game basis. He still finished, I believe, second on the team in sacks. Yeah, tied for second with Calvin Dinkins. Nick Mitchell led the way with 2.5. Also tied with DJ Reed, who had 2 sacks as well. But the guy played 1.5 games. It was a half sack behind the team lead in sacks. So what he showed in that short amount of time was a big-time disruptor along the defensive line. Now, look, to be fair, it's one of those games at Southern Miss. He was fantastic against Arizona State, but Arizona State's pass defense, Arizona State's pass protection was not great last year, so maybe that's something that would look a little bit different as the season went along. Is he as dominant SEC play? I don't know. But I feel very confident in saying he would not have been I'm going to say would not have been worse. I think he would have been better than a lot of the guys you were running out there, and could have been the difference in Mississippi State being better on the defensive side of the ball. So getting him back is big. Then you have Jerron Manning at safety, who you talked about, State having a safety lead the way in tackles last year. Yeah, Jerron Manning, who led the team with 85 tackles on the season. He had an interception, had 3 tackles for loss, had 4 passes broken up. Was a really solid player for Mississippi State in the secondary. He talked about earlier this week in the bowl game press conferences that they're exploring getting another year of eligibility for him because he was a former JUCO player. And as we had the situation last year with Diego Pavia, Pavia argued that JUCO guys should be able to still have another year of eligibility. Your JUCO time should not count against your time playing in NCAA football. So that was like a temporary agreement that was made last year. It's how State was able to get Devon Booth back for another season. It is not something that is an official ruling, and that is something that is still going to be taken to the court, still be figured out. So we don't know for sure if this is going to pass. But if it does, State could then have Jerron Manning back in the secondary. And having a veteran like that at safety, who is a solid player, is a good thing for you. Feels like there's a good chance you get Kelly Jones back at corner. And I know there's, Mel Kiper talking about him as one of the top corners available in the draft and being a guy that could be a first-round pick potentially this coming up spring in the draft. But the word seems to be that Kelly Jones kind of been told, hey, you're better off going and getting another year of development. Like, we'd like to see another year before we put our chips in on you being a true elite cornerback prospect that we're going to pay first-round money for. If you come back to school and you have a year, I imagine what Kelly Jones has been told, and this is not official. Kelly Jones has not said he is returning. I know he put out that Instagram post that kind of made it seem like he's coming back, but officially we've not received word Kelly Jones is back. But what I imagine Jones was told is like, hey, this year was awesome. Give us one more year like that, and you will be a first-round pick, no question about it. Whereas if you go this year, you're probably going day 2, which is still going to be really good money. But if you can play your way into being a first-round pick, you want to have that opportunity. So it kind of sounds like Kelly Jones might be back. We don't know for sure. Again, this is not official. But if you get him back, okay, well, then we're talking about having a lockdown corner. And then you talk about Isaac Smith, who I know State, he's, they're going to have to get things figured out and make sure that they can pay him to keep him back. But if you have Isaac Smith returning, there's another veteran at safety who's been such a great player for you over the past couple seasons. So I think fits that role of a middle safety in the Zach Arnett defense really well. The dog safety, as Arnett called it. I think it'd be outstanding in that role. So if we're talking about, we got a good defensive lineman, good pass rusher, disruptive player, Will Whitson. You've got, and this is if everything aligns, if all of this comes together, disruptive defensive lineman in Whitson. You've got a lockdown corner in Kelly Jones, 2 veterans at safety in Isaac Smith and Jerron Manning. Then you look at the linebacker room. Zachary Tillman, Jalen Smith, Darian Gillette, Tyler Lockhart. Very promising young group of linebackers. A lot of guys who have shown you some really solid play. There's a lot of talent in that group. Guys like Tillman and Lockhart specifically have shown some disruptive ability and some great ability to go make plays in the backfield, which I think is something that gets you really excited over, that could be something there. You feel like those are guys that could thrive playing for Zach Arnett, who's had a lot of success in the linebacker position. So you think you've got good talent in that linebacker room. And then I look at some of the other defensive linemen coming back. DJ Reed, Jere Bledsoe, Calvin Dinkins, Trevion Williams. Those are all solid defensive linemen. They all showed
Mhm.
flashes this year. And do you want to roll with them as your starters next season? Probably not. But that's a solid group you can work with. And if those are your number 2 guys, that's great. Which, by the way, there's nothing that says a guy like Calvin Dinkins could finally put it all together and be that dominant, disruptive defensive tackle, nose tackle for State. So I feel good. I think you've got some good depth pieces there at defensive line. You're bringing in Braylon Womack, who's a 5-star player in the secondary that I think is going to be an impact player right away at safety, who I think could be a coverage player for you playing that nickel role, if not middle of the field safety. You know, Micah Nickerson, is he going to get big enough, strong enough to be a premier pass rusher right away? I don't know. But that's a talented guy coming in. Tyshawn Willis was a guy that I think there was some thought of him being an instant impact player for Mississippi State last year. Can he finally be that breakthrough guy who didn't really play as a true freshman, but after redshirting, is he going to have the size to go and be a disruptor as that stand-up edge rusher, Sam linebacker in the Arnett defense? There's some promising young talent. There are some veteran solid players. There's a couple guys who look like high-level players, all coming back. I kind of potentially, I said all coming back. Again, I have to keep saying potentially. This could all end up like maybe Kelly Jones declares, Jerome Manning, it isn't official. Whitson doesn't get a ruling. Isaac Smith transfers. Like, if all the terrible stuff happens, okay, this is a different story. But if all of these things happen for State and they get every positive outcome, you have the bones of potentially a really exciting defense, and then would start. Zach Arnett is calling the defense, which you feel a lot better about than what you've had the past couple seasons. I think they would then be a few pieces away in the portal where if you go and you hit on a few pieces, you could really be talking about a good defense in Starkville next season. And I can get to what they're going to have to go after here just in a sec. But Christian, tell me I'm not completely crazy here, that if all of these things happen, or even most of them, I think there's individual reasons to be excited about this defense, and coming together, you can have a group that takes a big step forward next year.
No doubt. And again, not to jump too far into the Mayo Bowl for Mississippi State against Wake Forest, but part of my, not to get too far into it, but I feel like part of my breakdown is that's going to be a key game. Is who do you want to put out there on defense? Are you going to have guys opt out? We still got time between now and then where guys could decide not to play if possible, or if they wanted to. Let me say it like that. That's just going to be a key game that is going to make or break Mississippi State, or not like make or break them, but it in a positive way defensively. If it's a good game, it'll give you a preview of next year. I would hope. I would hope we play some young guys that potentially come back. You mentioned Zach Arnett returning, um, for being the defensive coordinator coming back. Proven success, obviously out there. Will Whitson, um, on the defensive line. Braylon Womack, the 5-star. Is he going to be a immediate impact freshman? I think that's a big question. A lot of people love what he's done in high school. A lot of people are hoping that you put a guy out there like that. So there's a lot of key pieces. There's going to be guys that you're going to hate to see go. There's going to be guys that you love to see come back. There's going to be a guy or two here or there in recruiting that maybe stands out in the spring. I say all this to say there's got to be really good, I don't want to say hype, but more so optimism for what this defense could be in 2026. And overall, I feel like the Mayo Bowl, not to base it off one game, but I feel like that game against Wake Forest, who's not really that bad of a team, um, I I feel like it could be a big moment for Mississippi State. Win or lose the bowl game. If you can just have a good defensive performance, it'll set the tone hopefully for the offseason and going into 2026.
I do agree. Like, I think the bowl game is a chance to make, like, you're right. Can this be a hint of what the defense is going to look like next year? And Arnett's not calling the defense. It's going to be why am I blanking on his name? Safeties coach, Matt Barnes. He's going to be the one calling the defense. So they're still going to be running essentially the same type of scheme that they were running the last few games. But it's an opportunity for a lot of these guys to have a breakout game. And Whitson's not going to be out there because he was done for the year. But could another defensive lineman, can we get a dominant game from Trevion Williams or from Jaray Bledsoe? Can Tyler Lockhart show another big-time game to oh, yeah, man, that's why Mississippi State did everything in their power to get him to ultimately sign with the Bulldogs on signing day? Do you have a young corner come out and put together an impressive game? You have questions about cornerback next year because, again, we don't know if Kelly Jones is back for sure. Do you have a young safety who makes plays? Because I know I laid this out with Jerron Manning, hey, we think we can get him back. We don't know if we're going to get him back. So it's a big opportunity to make a statement about what this defense could be going into next season. And if all of those stars align and you get everything to work out, so Whitson, it's approved. Jerron Manning gets another year. Isaac Smith definitely comes back. Kelly Jones comes back. And then everything else I've said. And look, you're right. There's probably going to be guys hit the portal. That's just a part of it. And you're probably going to end up losing somebody on either side of the ball that you don't want to lose. You hope you don't. We're not predicting that, but it's just the odds are – it happens to everybody. That's just college football these days.
Yeah.
But if all of those things align, and then everything else I laid out for what you could potentially have coming back, I think you go into this portal season, which the portal opens now in a couple of weeks. I think State's 3 pieces away from you're talking about a really solid group, at least a starting defense. Number one, they got to get a big-time edge rusher. That's a big-time thing they're going to have to get. And I know Whitson looks like a guy who could be that pass rusher, which we did have a question here from Trey. Will Whitson plays the defensive spot that Crumedy played or the stand-up Sam spot that we played? I think he'd be in a spot like what Crumedy did. Crumedy, they would kind of move him both inside and out. And I think with Wheat, it's kind of the same way, kind of playing as a 5-tech, where if they want to move him inside to a 3-tech or a 4-eye, they can do that as well, playing just inside the tackle or just outside the guard. But I think he might be a little bit more or they could get him head up on a tackle or just off the edge. I think that's probably where you're going to see Whitson, but I think it'll be hand in the dirt. I don't think it'll be sort of the stand-up edge spot that we have like a Tyrus Wheat. That spot, though, is where I think you got to go find somebody. When I talk about finding a strong edge rusher, I'm thinking of the Sam linebacker and Zach Arnett's defense because I think that a guy like Tyrus Wheat, who was obviously so effective for State when he was here, but that's the role that you were hoping of Malik Silla this year, which they called it the Jack linebacker in Coleman Hutzler's defense. You were hoping that he would explode into that. Brandon Jennings would take a big step forward. And it just never fully happened. You need someone who's coming off the edge in that stand-up spot that consistently can get pressure and be a disruptor in the backfield. They have to find a player like that. Could Micah Nickerson get there year one? I think that's a guy who's got to put on quite a bit of weight, probably needs to hit the weight room and get developed a little bit. Still very raw talent. Again, Tyshawn Willis, again, it's another deal. It might take a little bit of time there. But if they can go and in the portal find an edge rusher who for sure you're confident that guy's stepping in and going to be a big-time impact player, I think you have to go out and find that. And I was hoping that 247 would have the edge position designated. Oh, they have a few. So Adam Trick from Miami of Ohio is listed as the top edge in the portal to this point. Tyler Thompson out of UNC, Javion Hilson out of Missouri, L.A. Jesse Harold out of Florida State. I'll be honest, I know none of these guys. I'm just naming names here. But you got to go find someone who can play that type of role because you got to get pass rush. You got to have it. You got to be able to set the edge. That's the other thing. They couldn't set the edge. The reason teams kept spamming outside zone at them is because they knew, hey, man, Mississippi State can't set the edge. They can't bottle this thing up at all. We can just run right around them. So you got to have somebody who can do that. Number two, you got to find at least one starting caliber corner because now obviously if you lose Kelly Jones, you got to get multiple. But assuming you get Jones back, one other guy opposite of him. They don't have to be as dominant, don't have to be a big-time player, but can you have someone that is just a good corner opposite of Kelly Jones? That's something they're going to have to do. I know Mississippi State apparently is already in the game for a kid out of Iowa State at that position. They're going to have to find a way to make that happen. Jay Crawford transferring out of Auburn. Mississippi State want to pay up and get him to come make the move. He was a really good player for Auburn this season. like whatever it is, like you got to find another corner who can step in and just be a solid starter opposite of Kelly Jones. If you get Kelly Jones back, but we're talking pie in the sky if everything aligns for Mississippi State here again. I keep hitting this point because I know all of this could very quickly be old takes exposed if all this goes poorly for State. But you got to get a big time edge rusher. You got to get at least one starting caliber corner, and then I'm just going to say one more disruptive defensive lineman. I won't even say necessarily nose tackle, defensive end, whatever. I need someone that I can put on that defensive line that I think is going to cause problems. Because I do think there's room for some of the guys already coming back on the roster that I talked about as depth pieces with Williams, Calvin Dinkins, Bledsoe, DJ Reed. Like any one or two of those guys could take a step forward to be a starting caliber player next year. You got to find at least one more guy you trust, defensive line. We can put him out there, and he's going to be a disruptor. If you hit on those pieces and then everything else talked about, I think then you just fill a couple more holes with some solid options, and I think you're looking at a really solid defense. Because, look, they're going to need more than just, I said, one strong edge rusher, one disruptive defensive lineman. They're going to need multiple at those spots. They're probably going to want to sign multiple corners, whether Kelly Jones comes back or not, because you need bodies in that room. They're going to have to go out and sign safeties, whether they get Jerron Manning, Isaac Smith back or not, because they're losing so many guys out of the safety room. But I don't necessarily need you to go get a bunch of elite players at all those positions. If they want to come to Mississippi State, awesome. But if the price tag is right and they want to come and be Bulldogs, for sure. But I think if you can hit on those three key spots, edge rusher, corner, and then just a disruptive defensive lineman, and then everything else clicks, man, I think there's a chance Mississippi State's defense takes a big step forward next year. I'm not saying it'll be a great unit, a dominant unit that can just single-handedly win them games, but I think it could be a pretty good defense that, assuming you take a step forward offensively as well, you could end up being a really good team. I'm really kind of sneaky excited about what State's defense could be. And this is stupid that I've gotten myself excited because, again, there's so many conditional things that have to align for Mississippi State. But I think some of those pieces are in place where, again, if a few things work out, I think we're potentially talking about Mississippi State having a really good defense next year.
I hope that, and I haven't really looked at, because it's not quite time, but the 2026 schedule. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a future episode and all that, but we went 5-7 this year. We got an invitation. We're playing Wake Forest in a bowl. Okay, get a 6th win. Maybe we get an 8th loss if we lose it, whatever. You're hoping that if this defense really does improve like we think it should in 2026, I mean, let's say it keeps you in a couple more games, man. I mean, are we looking at a 7-win team, 8-win team? Maybe not 8 wins, but I would think, man, you don't have to worry about your eligibility for a bowl. You could just get comfortable at 6-6 or 7-5, and hey, man, you're there. Again, I haven't looked at next year's schedule completely, but I mean, if this unit on defense, and then we talked earlier about quarterback and everything, basically you bring it all together, this is a team that next year, I mean, they could be dangerous in the SEC and probably just in college football, right?
For sure. This bowl game, win or lose, if Kamario Taylor goes out and has a good game, and then you have some young guys on defense or some guys that are coming back on defense, make some big plays, show you some flashes, and you get a solid defensive effort, I don't care if you lose. If all those things happen, and then you go into the portal and you start landing some quality pieces on that defensive side of the ball, obviously you got to get the offensive lineman too to help fully get the offense together. I'm going to be excited. I'm going to think this team could have a really impressive season next year. And you're right, make noise. And look, the schedule is going to be tough, but that's just life. So yes, 7+ wins, 8+ wins potentially. Like this bowl game is a big chance to get momentum. We'll obviously talk more about that, next week as we get into the bowl preview type stuff. But this was something I started thinking about today. The stars may be aligning for State's defense. Again, a lot of things have to go right. I keep repeating that point because I fully recognize none of this is set in stone. 1 week from today, my tune could be completely changed if we find out a bunch of things just aren't going to work out for whatever reason, or we get done with the portal cycle and State whiffs on a bunch of spots, and then all of a sudden, again, we're right back to being negative. But right here in this moment, I think State is, if they can have a few things click and then land a few pieces in the portal, I think there's a path to field a really fun defense in 2026 and take a big step forward on that side of the ball. That'll be it for us tonight. I guess real quick before we do close out, Ballard, thoughts on Alabama?
It's hard to beat the same team twice in one season. We did already lose to Oklahoma, and I said this in my preview video this week on Ballard Sports Media. Come check us out, by the way, on YouTube. It's hard to beat the same team twice. Alabama has an Oklahoma problem. They have lost twice in a row to Oklahoma. Kalen DeBoer has. But at the same time, Oklahoma is winless in the college football playoffs. So maybe that's something. I don't know. But it is in Norman. I'll give them credit. No hate. Nothing but love and respect for the Oklahoma fans out there. Hopefully it's a good game. I think Alabama just needs to come out firing on all cylinders on offense, get into a good rhythm with Ty, and play four-quarter, give a lot of pressure on I'm drawing a blank. Who's the quarterback?
John Mateer.
John Mateer. That's it. I almost wanted to say Arnold, but he went to Auburn. Get pressure on that guy because he's good. He'll kill you with his legs and with his arm and all that good stuff. So just play physical, play tough, play clean football. Don't, get out of hand. But I'm going to say Alabama wins. I think it's going to be a little bit of a defensive game. I'm kind of changing my score from the other day. I'll say like let's go 27-21 Bama.
That'd be an over for what it's worth.
Yeah.
The spread, the total's like 39. So
is it really?
Yeah, it's.
Oh my God! I'm gonna be honest though. In my prediction video, I had Alabama up like 17-10, something crazy like that, or 17-7. I thought it would be a lot of defense. So I'm guessing with that like over under right there is like, they might be expecting the same thing. But nothing would surprise. The only thing that would surprise me is if it gets out of hand and both teams score in the 30s or higher. But this is a really good defensive game, possibly that we'll get to see tomorrow night. But I'm excited for it. I won't be live or nothing, but you can catch me screaming and hollering if we lose at the end of the game. So I'll lose my crap. Anyway, back to you, Andrew.
No, it should be a fun game. Go check out Christian's preview over at Ballard Sports Media. Also, SEC Voice of College Football. We did our preview episode for all the first round games for the feature in the SEC. So we talked Alabama, Oklahoma. We talked Miami, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss, Tulane. And for Bama, Oklahoma, we had Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson come be a part of the program.
Nice.
And give his thoughts on the game. And Clint did a great job breaking that down. So go watch the full stream if you want to break down. But we also have a video just us talking to Clint if you're looking for a preview of Alabama versus Oklahoma, his thoughts on that matchup. It was a really fun interview to do. So that'll do it for us tonight. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we'll be back next week, either Monday or Tuesday. Don't have a day set just yet. But we'll do one show next week with it being Christmas. So we'll be back to essentially we're going to start previewing the bowl game. We haven't really dove into Wake Forest just yet. And I kind of want to make that be the main topic for the next couple of shows leading into the bowl game. So take a look at the Demon Deacons. What do we need to know about that program? And that's really going to be the topic. And, of course, if anything else happens with the portal, college football news of relevance, coaching staff stuff, if any of that gets established for Mississippi State, obviously we'll get into all of that as well. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. If you haven't already, please leave us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn that notification bell on so you do know when we do go live. And as always, swing your sword and Hail State.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.